good afternoon, everyone. First up, apologies for not being able to be there in person. However, we have a brilliant panel on the stage, and we have a brilliant setting set up by this event on a story of resilience by BW Hotelier. So let's try and figure out the post-pandemic outcome and of the resilience that we showed earlier. Turning to the gentleman on the stage, thank you for your time over here. Maybe we could begin by getting a sense from each of you on how you see the post-pandemic business and what sort of trends are you seeing going forward. Maybe we can start with the gentleman on the left. I think, is that Nitin? I can't see too clearly. And then move to the right.
Wonderful to be here amongst all of you. And, the trends that we've seen post-pandemic are mainly around the domestic market. I'm sure that's a common theme that you'll hear today, but that's the market that has saved us. A strong support from the domestic market. The middle class has started traveling again. They are traveling as families. They are not shy. I think a big plus point, a big change that we're seeing from before. Since they're traveling with families, I think what we are also noticing is obviously higher double occupancy percentage in the rooms. They're tending to spend more time within the hotels, which is to the benefit of the hotel. I think they're using additional ancillary services in the hotel, such as wellness, other F&B outlets. So all of that is directly adding to the RGI of the hotel. So that's definitely one positive trend. The other, with regards to, I think, the foreign tourist arrivals is an area that we remain cautiously optimistic. I think there are areas of concern which we hope will get resolved soon. The continuance of COVID in certain parts of the world, even resurgence in some parts, the global impact of Russia-Ukraine conflict, increasing inflation in other parts of the world, I think are all causes for concern. So it's a mixed bag in that sense, but we're happy that the domestic market has strongly supported us. In terms of the future, I think while India as a destination offers opportunities across all destinations, across all segments, but two areas stand out for us. Or for me, I think the domestic leisure destinations and the tier 3 and tier 4 cities. We've seen a very strong demand over the COVID and the post-COVID period in the leisure destinations within India. People have started traveling to even offbeat destinations. There are boutique properties which are offering complete immersive experiences. And all of that, I think, is expected to continue. So great opportunity in these destinations. And lastly, I think the tier 4, tier 3 cities, some of them are growing rapidly. There's a great focus on these cities, and they will definitely need more and more hotel rooms. So investing maybe in a mid-segment or upper mid-segment hotel in these destinations is a great opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Khanna, for inviting us and particularly me for this. So I think everyone's been speaking about this whole experiential opportunity that's come by in the last 2 years. I think we've built our business on this in the last 3 decades on the backs of the domestic leisure traveler. And I'm just so happy that everybody is recognizing it today. It's never too late, honestly. So I sit on this panel today as an owner operator. We are a mid-sized experiential resort chain. We have partnerships with IHCL. We have 2 properties with them currently and a couple of them on the way. We also have a partnership with Club Mahindra Resorts, and then we have our own properties. There was a time actually towards the first 3 months of the pandemic in 2020, as an owner, we were looking at flipping our asset because we didn't have any operational cash flow to be able to sustain operations. And this is when we are a diversified business. We have a primary sugar business and some real estate. And 2 months later, we had the opportunity to see historic highs in our business, rates that we've never seen before. And I must say that we've seen those rates, in fact, continue 2 years later as well. So in my opinion, we are at an inflection point. I don't think this can sustain. I don't want to be pessimistic on this panel, but I think we have to change again, and this new normal is not here to stay. And we come from those remote locations and corners, which most people refer to as tier 2, tier 3. Those have become mainstream. So I think the message that I have is that the old normal will not be the new normal. And I think it's time to buckle up and be prepared for the next phase in this.
Okay, so as we all know that this pandemic has been the most hostile to the most hospitable sector, which is hospitality. So I think we've all almost buckled under in the last 2 years, at least in the first wave. I think nearly quite a few of our hotels had to be shut down temporarily. So it was a very, very bad phase, but fortunately now, as we all know, that things are back with a bang. And as a matter of habit, what we do is that, at least in my company, is that we always compare our monthly performance with the pre-COVID levels of the same month. So idea is to know that where are we? Because during 18-19, at least our hotels are doing fantastic. For those of you not aware, we mostly have business hotels with us. And that pandemic was the only time when I felt sorry that we didn't have a resort, because that's the only resorts for making money at that point of time. So having said that, I think what we have done now is that happy to see that our numbers have not only surpassed the pre-COVID numbers, but they are well above the pre-COVID numbers. I think that probably applies to all of us who own business hotels. Other lesson that we have learned that we are taking forward is to do more with less. To give you an example, an average 5-star luxury hotel probably has a staff to room ratio of about nearly close to 2:1, or definitely 1.5, 1.6, 1.7, and so on. What we realized is that we are doing an equally good job, in fact, a better job today with 0.7, 0.8:1. And that is a ratio that is here to stay, at least as far as we are concerned. Having said that, we are also aware that our bottom lines have to be protected. So from the focus of top line and bottom line, where top line focus was, let's say, about 60% and 40% on the bottom line, now the roles have reversed. So now our focus is more towards the bottom line. So how do we control costs? But you never know tomorrow again what may happen, because pandemic is not fully away. So we have to be very, very mindful of the fact that it can come back anytime. New variants have come in, government advisory has again been issued, as you know. So having said that, our focus is really, really very strong focus on expenses. I wouldn't say cutting corners, but definitely optimizing expenses. All wasteful expenses have been cut out, including the special amenities in the rooms and extra staff, and your car driving into the porte cochere, and you have 3 valets surrounding you. Now you just have 1 valet. So that's how we have sort of tried to figure out. So the way forward, as far as I see, is that you be very, very mindful that anything can happen, mindful of your expenses.
Spot on, Vineet. Ranjit, do you want to give it a shot now?
I think most of the points have been covered, but trends will be trends, and there's very little one can do. I wish we were more in the leisure market. That's big learning for us. And what has really come out of this whole pandemic is that we've become super efficient. We look at not only as owners, the operators and the people working have become very responsible towards the bottom line. And there's much more importance towards efficiency. So I think that's great news, and that was really required in our industry, running hotels. So primarily we are business hotels, and one new trend which I particularly see is that there's an emergence of a lot of creativity in the F&B space. So a lot of people in the pandemic time have decided to open restaurants and catering and cloud kitchens. So that's a great trend, and that means we need to pull up our socks and go for more cutting edge cuisines and innovative ideas. So we're working towards that. And November for us is again a super month, beating all numbers, records. So happy.
Thanks, Ranjit. May I just add to this some insights into this? I think what's really encouraging is that the September trends of foreign travelers, passengers at our airports has actually crossed 80% mark of pre-pandemic September. So it's moving in the right direction, and recent announcements of direct flights from US to Mumbai, Bangalore, and Hyderabad are again very positive signs. So far, everyone had to take a connecting flight to get here. That's going to sort itself out in the next month or so. And we had some visa issues that hopefully will be addressed very soon. With that, I think we should be able to get serious traction back on the foreign travelers also. Brilliant. So now let's do a little bit of crystal gazing here now. Crystal ball gazing, rather. Could each of you share with the audience here where you see concentration of your future resource deployment? And in the interest of time, maybe we can just share only 3 points: locations, segments, and asset positioning. Ranjit, since the camera's on you, do you want to take this one first? Just repeating: locations, segments, and asset positioning. Where would you put your resources?
Human resource, no doubt.
No, sorry, let me just repeat that. If you were to put capital and new focus, which locations, which segments, and which category of assets or asset positioning would you put that?
I think to de-risk, because money is quite expensive now, and looking at future opportunities, we would definitely consider more mixed-use development, fractional ownership, more of, I think, residential hotel combinations, which is quite common some places. I think that would be interesting, and a model where guests invest. So this would be something in purely leisure segment, maybe even glamping, thinking out of the box.
Interesting. Thanks, Ranjit. Vineet, do you want to give this some insights?
Yeah, sure. Presently, of course, we are more busy trying to service our existing debt. We are yet to get out of the woods. So I think with all the ECLGSs that we availed of, 3 of them, so obviously the debt burdens are still pretty high. Even if our hotels are doing very well today, I think it's going to be some more time before we are really out of it. So, but having said that, our focus will continue to be top priority on mixed-use developments, because we believe that's the future. A hotel sitting on top of a mall, for example, or a large lifestyle enclave, also including a hotel. And we have set these examples, as you know, Sanjay, that we have our Brigade Gateway with Sheraton. So similarly, we have all our mixed-use things. So that's the way forward. We are not looking at uber luxury hotels. I think our focus is more towards business class hotels in the 4 to 5 star segment, base 5 star. And what we are also going to focus heavily on is that we are very, very cost sensitive and cost conscious. We have figured out a way, I think we have figured out a way of controlling our costs to well below even what our operators recommend. So I think that's the way forward. I think we will look at, and the other thing, of course, we may look at in future, presently, of course, no, is that acquisitions, brownfield hotels, or I wouldn't say distressed properties, but definitely properties which are in good guaranteed catchment areas. We are not looking at tier 2, tier 3 cities. I think our focus is more towards expanding existing metros. And as you know, we are also focused more on South India, and that's our focus going to be.
Thanks, Vineet. Vibhas, you're a growing company and growing rapidly. Where would you put your capital in?
So we, I think what we know well, which is just a regional superpower in Uttarakhand. We know the state well. We know Himachal, which has similar demographics. We know similar boutique, bespoke resorts work well. We are trying to diversify risk with doing gated communities with a real estate component, I think also called mixed use or residential models. We have a few projects in that timeline. Kumaon region of Uttarakhand is under-serviced. We have a few properties in that area coming up with IHCL and some on our own. Kumaon is not well known in this. With accessibility improving, I think that's an area that we want to take to the market. And out of question though, but we have a new business, which is the craft spirit business. So we're actually opening our own distillery with a tourism story coming up in Uttarakhand as well, with rum, a gin, and a malt in the next few months.
That's very interesting, Vibhas. So you're clearly spreading your operational capabilities beyond just innkeeping or hoteliering. Thank you, Ranjit. Sorry, Vineet. I'm sorry, Nitin. The challenges of IT and doing this online. Go ahead, Nitin.
No worries. So I think the idea for us is also to try and de-risk ourselves. Our current locations are within the tier 1 and tier 2 cities. They are focused on 5-star categories. But like I mentioned earlier, we've seen some trends come out of the COVID and the post-COVID periods. The domestic traveler is exploring newer destinations within India. The connectivity between destinations has improved drastically. Both, I think, air networks as well as the road networks have come up very strongly. And that's allowing people to travel much more easily and deeper into unexplored areas. So what we are looking at is possibly, these destinations within the hills, which are maybe 9-10 hours driving distance of Delhi, or they have good air connectivities currently or coming up. So that's one area. I think the other, and of course in these destinations we would look at probably a 3 or 4-star category, a mid-scale or upper mid-scale kind of a property. Nothing very fancy. Similarly, I think tier 3 and tier 4. These, like I've mentioned, are upcoming locations. There's going to be a strong demand, although I think maybe a bit down the line. But this is, I think, the time to enter those markets. So again, a mid to upper mid-scale hotel in these areas would be a good opportunity.
Thanks, Nitin. Gentlemen, I'm going to move into individual questions now to each of you. Nitin, maybe I can begin with you. We'll keep these answers really short because I want all of you to get at least one question each, which is specific to you. Nitin, you've got some interesting thoughts on the future of specialty and concept restaurants. Would you like to share some of those thoughts with the audience over here?
Sure. I think it's always a debate for us. We've been talking about whether, it's worth even continuing with a specialty restaurant in our existing properties or even adding one to it. Let me give you an example. I mean, when we opened up our first hotel, the Radisson Blue Plaza at the airport, this was over 2 decades ago. And at that time, its location was considered to be completely out of Delhi. People didn't want to venture, that far. Gurgaon was undeveloped. So it was a big challenge in terms of, how to attract footfalls into this new location. And the way I think it was addressed at that time was by introducing 4 high-end or fine dine F&B concepts. One of them being a sports bar with a bowling alley. I think that was the first of its kind in a hotel at that time. The second was an Italian fine dine called Italiani's. There was a Chinese fine dine called I Ching. And the fourth one being an Indian concept called the Great Kebab Factory. So many of you might be familiar with that brand. It did become, luckily, a great success. And all of these concepts, of course, the 4 concepts were in addition to the all-day dining that we had. I think I would give a big part of the credit to these 4 concepts that were introduced, which helped pull in a lot of footfalls from Delhi, despite the I think, resistance in terms of traveling that distance at that point in time. but people actually started coming in. Radisson, like I said, it was the first hotel of Radisson in India at that time. So the brand was completely new. There was a bit of, educational curve that needed to be fulfilled in the market. But F&B was such a strong pull at that time that it helped, I think, create that market positioning for the hotel. So what I'm trying to say is that, those specialty concepts worked at that time, but would I do the same today? Probably not. The times have changed. The F&B market in India has completely changed, especially in tier 1 cities. It's completely different from what it used to be about 2 decades ago. There are a lot of standalone fine dine restaurants, high-end casual dining restaurants, which are giving great competition to the restaurants within the hotels. But again, I'm not saying that these concepts will not work in the hotels. They will, but I think we have to consider them carefully depending on the type of hotel that we are opening them up in, the location of the hotel. So those are the factors that need to be considered, especially given the significant cost that you would have to incur today in opening a fine dine restaurant. So those are my thoughts. Pass it on to.
Thanks, Nitin. This time I've got individual questions for everyone. So it's not the common question for you, Vibhas, something different. Given the disruption in the last couple of years, how do you see the operator-owner relationships evolving in times to come? As you said, you've got partnerships ongoing with IHCL and Mahindra Holidays. Talk us through some of those. Also, do you see owners developing operational capabilities to either move into franchise formats or develop one of their own brands through some backward integration and looking at that as a value creation for their own companies? Vibhas.
Yeah, thank you. I think a very relevant question for somebody like us because we have these hybrid relationships. We are giving hotels to manage, we're managing hotels, we own some, we co-own some. So actually the journey with Mahindra Holidays for us started almost 2 decades ago where we partnered with them and we had 2 properties, one of which we've just taken back actually earlier this month. So we still have 1 remaining asset with them. The format of that relationship was more of a dry lease. We were not participating per se in the upside in case of business sentiments or the IHCL relationship came by almost a decade ago where we partnered with them. In fact, we looked at that point who we perceived as to be the best brand for our resort in Uttarakhand. One thing led to another. We became comfortable with them. You pretty much know they have many joint ventures. Some of them are publicly listed as well. So the fact that where we stand today, we have clearly a hybrid structure in place. For someone like us, we've now created a team. We have an asset management cell. We have a projects division. We have sales and marketing, revenue distribution. So pretty much the shebang when it comes to operating our own assets. So we do believe in some markets, we will continue to partner with IHCL, which are in the luxury space. One of our assets that we opened as a franchise in Haridwar has done really well. That's given us a lot of confidence to have more such relationships with them. But for us, it's a bread and butter business. So, I continue to do this. So I think going forward, we'll have more of a monetization strategy where we will continue to manage some, continue to franchise some. So I don't know if Mrs. Sethi that answers your question, but it's a bit of a mix.
Okay. Just a quick question. Is there a brand that you think you'll launch as a common brand across your portfolio at some point of time? Do you also see yourself running hotels for others at any point of time?
Yeah, so we've debated this, I think, thrice now with marketing experts. And I think we call ourselves like a house of brands. It's actually helped us as well. Many people don't know a property in Rishikesh, still one of the largest, Aloha on the Ganges, is part of our portfolio. And there's another one in Haridwar, which is under a different brand altogether. And this little crafted surprise is actually benefiting us in my mind. So this mono brand strategy or multi-brand strategy of IHCL and others is is also working. So I think yeah, each property has its own strategy. That's what we've been at least delving with right now.
Thanks, Vibhas. Vineet, this one's for you. Your dearest assets, the employees, are actually on your rolls. Their well-being and statutory responsibility is yours to a large extent. Yet you have little control on recruitment, training, and loyalty. Love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, and this, in fact, is one of my favorite subjects that I personally monitor. Yes, our human resources are our biggest assets, and we have been observing some very disturbing trends over the last, at least during the pandemic years. What happened is that some of us, I'm sure that some exceptions are there, but some of us actually had to reduce our numbers during the pandemic. Otherwise, we would have just closed down. But what has happened thereafter is a lot of these human resources, so they have moved back to their hometowns, to their villages. And some of them have found substantial interest in their farming business. So quite a few of them we have lost permanently, I'm afraid, that they're not going to come back ever into hospitality. The other trend we have seen also is that hospitality profession is losing its charm. And I have tried to research why is that so. The main reason being that other sectors, particularly the IT, the BPO, the facility management, they are offering you a 5-day week. So this young generation is looking at a work-life balance. And so work-life balance means 5-day week. I'm afraid hotels cannot provide that 5-day week. We offer you 12 hours, 14 hours working day, 6-day a week, sometimes a 7-day also. So the challenge lies in the fact that how do we address this brain drain that's happened? I personally, across our we used to have more than 2,000 hotel employees at one time. And we have lost quite a few of them permanently. Some of them, of course, have come back. So we've been trying to figure out how do we address this going forward. At a very conservative estimate, India will need a minimum 3,000 to 3,500 fresh talent every year into the hotel industry. With the kind of promise we have with the industry growing back, where are we going to get these people from? I was speaking with some of the IHMs. The seats are empty. The students are not seeking admission in IHMs at all. That they have 20-30% vacancy in their IHMs. So the challenge lies is how do we sort of get together as a government, as our own industry, as stakeholders in making hospitality attractive all over again. One thing that feedback I got was that even the hotel industry pays less compared to other industry. Obviously, we can't compete with the US-based companies, where they give you double the pay of what you're earning in hotels, but you need to have the passion for hotellery. It's a passion that comes first for you to join the hotel industry. So with that in mind, the challenge that we all have to work on is how do we promote hospitality sector back again as being the most preferred sector for a youngster to join and build a career. So that is what our focus is today. I hope I've answered your question to some extent, Sanjay.
Thanks, Vineet. Vineet, one of the things that we face as an industry in India specifically is that we don't get talent on call like you do in the West, right? You cannot call up a contractor or a vendor and say, look, I need someone to come and make 10 rooms in my hotel today, or I need someone to come and attend for 4 hours in my breakfast time in my restaurant today. You don't have the hourly wages concept here in India. Do you see this as an opportunity at some point of time?
Very good question, Sanjay. I think I missed mentioning that for all the audience here as well. One thing that we definitely have to address is reach out to our respective state governments in rehashing the Shop and Establishment Act. I think that's something which is pretty archaic. And for example, in the hotel industry, we have this something called an FTC, right? Fixed term contract people. But we have to push the government in allowing that as an official legally permissible activity. Secondly, you are not allowed to give more than 4 to 5 hours of overtime to an employee in the entire week. How does that work? So I think this is another good question you have brought up. We need to jointly, as a sector, reach out to our governments and request them to rehash the Shop and Establishment Act, make it more friendly towards the hotel industry. Presently, it is not so, unfortunately.
Thanks, Vineet. Vineet, there's also some talk about a gig workforce being created for the industry in the coming years, which can basically give you access to young people who do not want to work in a controlled environment of monthly salaries and have to report for shifts as they're demanded, who are making themselves available for say 10, 15, 20 days a month, but work at will, be their own bosses, and yet provide probably some decent services to our industry. Ranjit, coming to you now, your company has a unique and serious level of engagement with the hotels that are operated by the brands. How's that working for you? You want to share some thoughts on that?
It's been quite a big journey. It's been 15 years and 8 hotels down. We have acquired considerable amount of experience owning hotels through a lot of ups and downs, great relationships, sometimes not so great. But overall, from a Pune perspective, where most of our assets lie, starting from the Ritz-Carlton all the way down to Courtyard. What we realized is taking more control because you know the domestic market and you know your city better has actually helped us. Pune being a very price sensitive market, a lot of F&B driven market. For example, in Delhi, you get an Indian accent, 1 roti for 300 rupees. Our main course is 300 rupees. So you got to survive in that environment. And for that, we have come up with a lot of innovation in F&B, which is again very centric to our ownership. At least 50% of our revenue comes from F&B in most of our hotels, if not more. So we are active, very active, and we realize that people come and go, but we are the only ones actually constant in our asset. So we got to be there, making sure that all our hotels work.
Thank you, Ranjit. Before I move on, Ranjit, I know you're not feeling 100%. We wish you well, and also thank you for taking time out at this point of time. Team BW Hotelier, do we have time for audience questions? Could you sort of guide me on that, please?
I think, Sanjay, the monitor shows 10 minutes left of this session.
Okay,
so.
I'm sorry, I can't see that, but I've just got a message saying please close. I guess that's because they're running out of time. Maybe someone from BW can sort of step in and just reconfirm that. I'd be happy to take a couple of questions from the audience if they have that capability with mics around.
5 minutes. 5 minutes.
5 minutes. Vineet, since I can't see the audience, do you want to take over this part and let people ask questions?
Sure, with pleasure. So anybody in the audience, any questions for any one of us? Sanjay, I guess we've answered all their questions anyway, so there's no question.
You're a terrific panel, I must say. Well, gives everyone 5 more minutes for coffee today. Sorry, someone stepped in just now. I couldn't hear that part though. Okay, no audience questions is what the prompt has come. Thank you, panelists. Thank you for your time. Thank you, BW Hotelier, and all the best with the rest of the event.